Be your best. Sonya.
Ooh, it's glaring. Okay. Hi, I'm Sonya Niemeyer. I am an executive coach and founder of Lead Point Coaching. I'm also a recruiter for the last 10 years, and I'm the president and founder of Lead Point Financial, which is a finance and accounting recruiting firm. I've worked with a lot of different job seekers and employers over the years, and today I want to talk to you about how to be your best everywhere, your resume, your career, and your life. And I'll start out with really going over some suggestions I have in how to be your best in your resume. The first part I want to talk about is your objective. Actually, I would suggest that you leave this part off of your resume. A lot of times I see that it limits your possibility in being considered for additional positions that you might be open to if you are very specific in what you're looking for. Maybe you don't get the job that you're originally applying for, and it will actually cause employers to pass on you for other things if it doesn't fit what your objective says. Other times you might list a general objective that is so vague that it doesn't really provide any additional value and just takes up space on your resume. So ultimately I would just invite you to leave it off of your resume. The next part is your professional experience. I would really invite you to create the impression of longevity and progression as much as possible. For example, if you work in a company for 10 years and say you have 5 different positions in that company, I would invite you to put the company name at the top with the total time frame that you've been there and listing out the different positions that you've held and the time frames of each and bullet points under each position. Just so it's clear that you've worked at one place but you've been promoted a few times versus some people list the company like 5 different times with each position. It just creates the initial impression of job hopping, which you don't really want to do if possible. The next is internships and other relevant experience. I would actually invite you to separate that out into a different section. Again, just for the impression of less job hopping. The professional experience portion is the full-time post-college experience, and then internships and other relevant experience can be a separate section. In terms of the content, daily responsibilities is something that you absolutely want to list in the bullet points, but I would invite you to consider out-of-the-box responsibilities too. Employers often look for what have you done in addition to the day-to-day tasks that you're originally assigned to. Maybe there's some special projects that you've worked on. Maybe there's some process improvements that you've done. For example, maybe you basically shortened up the month-end close process from 7 days to 3, or maybe you improved efficiencies by 25%. You know, that's really important to include some of those things. If you've held any leadership capacity, or maybe you've managed or supervised some staff, you want to mention that as well. What accomplishments have you had? If there's any special recognition, maybe you were at the top of your annual review. You were an exceptional performer in the top 10% of your peer group, or maybe you were promoted early. That's something to mention as well. A lot of times people are pretty modest in their resume, but those are some things that can clearly indicate that you're a top performer and you're really a high quality employee. In the situations where maybe you've worked in a position where you're in consulting or public accounting and you have a variety of different clients, then I would suggest that you mention the types of clients that you've worked with. Maybe what industries have you worked on? What are the sizes of the companies? Are they publicly held or privately traded, publicly traded or privately held? And just listing some of those things in your resume. The more bullet points that you have is better than less, just to give the employer the full picture of what you've done in your career. In terms of education and certifications, in terms of your degree, a general rule of thumb that I have is even though people might think that the degree is not as important in terms of it being further back in your life, it still does matter. They want to know like what degree you have. If you do have a high GPA, 3.5 or above, I would suggest that you put it on your resume. If it's under that, I would suggest that you just leave it off. Not like it's bad if you have under 3.5, but then just leave them to wonder what it is, because they could think it is 3.5 or above. Additional certifications, I would suggest that you, if you have additional certifications, put them behind your name at the top of the resume, in addition to actually putting it in the education and certification section. And if you're in process of getting something additional, even put that in and just list it as in progress. For example, if you have a CPA and you have 2 of 4 parts passed, mention that. Mention the anticipated completion date, just so people know that you're actively in process. A couple other things. If you're a very seasoned professional and you've got a lot of different types of experience, sometimes it's good to have a core competency section up at the top of your resume, just to summarize and highlight the different areas of experience that you've had, just so people can clearly see that. Also, if you're a temporary employee looking for contract work, a lot of times employers focus on, what areas of experience do you have, and it just encompasses that if you have a core competency section. One big thing I want to stress is a lot of times colleges tell you to have your resume on 1 page, and as a new grad with limited experience, that's usually not an issue. Like, you can fit it all on 1 page. However, as your experience grows and you become an experienced professional, 2 pages is actually recommended over 1. I've seen people try to take things out, leave things off, just to shrink it down to 1 page, and that is actually hurtful for your consideration for employment, because some things you might be leaving off that are really important for the employer to see, and it's better to have more bullet points, more content, and 2 pages versus 1. So those are some highlights of the resume, and next time I'll talk to you about being your best in your career